Guy's a loser. He has no motion. Add this guy into the Hoggadex. This is a rare catch. To nab this level of delusion into hating you, fire writing. This is why we're here. I know. This is hogness beyond my wildest imagination. In any case, Philadelphia Inquirer wrote an article. Leftist streamer Hasan Piker gives Chris Rabb a boost during West Philadelphia campaign swing. Rabb appeared on the controversial streamer show, cast of Piker's millions of followers, and drawing hordes of young progressives to a pair of on-camera campaign events in the city. In a live stream conversation in West Philadelphia on Thursday with one of left's most polarizing national figures, State Rep Chris Rabb, anti-establishment and anti-Israel platform, which has dominated his campaign, and much of the rhetoric in the city's heated race for Congress, got a massive megaphone. Rabb appeared on controversial left streamer Hasan Piker's show, cast of millions of followers. During the 2 hours of raw, uninterrupted on-camera conversation, the duo gushed over cheesesteak egg rolls and General Roscoe's chicken and Black Dragon takeout, talked policy and lambasted Rabb's rivals and the larger Democratic establishment. Piker's stream, one of the largest platforms to host any of the candidates in the 3rd Congressional District race, was also likely to be the most controversial, Rabb acknowledged. I'm going to be slammed for even talking to you, Rabb told Piker in the backseat of an SUV in between dinner and a fundraiser at Renata's kitchen. But there's a double standard because as a black progressive, I can't do this. I'm part of the problem or whatever. Campaigning with Piker and appearing on his platform could give Rabb a surge of support, particularly among younger progressive voters in the final stretch before the May 19th open Democratic primary in which he's facing frontrunner State Senator Sharif Street and physician Ayla Stanford for the seat that represents about half of Philadelphia, one of the bluest districts in the nation. It could also cost them votes from those who've taken issue with some of Piker's stances. He's stumped for other candidates in places like Michigan. The streamer has been at the center of a broad national debate about whether the Democratic Party should embrace figures who align with most of his views, but who've also taken some controversial positions. Hasan has a documented record of statements that we find deeply troubling, said Jason Holtzman, chief of the Jewish Community Relations Council at the Jewish Federation of Greater Philadelphia. He dismissed the sexual violence of Hamas attacks on Israel October 7. He called Orthodox Jews inbred. He compared Zionists to Nazis. He characterized Hamas as preferable to the state of Israel, Holtzman said. These are not edgy opinions. They are statements that minimize Jewish suffering, dehumanize Jewish people, and normalize violence against Jews in the Jewish state. No, it doesn't. Okay? Also, Jews in the Jewish state. Always with the Jewish state. Oh, I just don't think these guys are ever going to give up on the false conflation between Judaism and Zionism, no matter what. They're just never going to give up on it. They're just going to keep posting it over and over again, not realizing that the environment has shifted dramatically from under their feet. They're just never going to recognize or acknowledge that you are associating an entire population of people with a deeply unpopular and very violent movement, a very violent nation state that has done a genocide that the overwhelming majority of Americans, including a decent chunk of Jewish Americans, recognize to be a pariah state that has committed a genocide, that deserves accountability. It just doesn't, it blows my mind that they keep this shit up. I don't understand it. Anyway, Piker has walked back some of his comments, which often appear in marathon daily broadcasts on the live streaming service Twitch. He hasn't apologized for others, including anti-Zionist statements like that he would vote for Hamas over the Israeli regime. Piker brushed off those concerns with Rabb, saying he's a vulgar person who just has a passion for the issues he cares about. We now live in a pro-Trump universe where we should be speaking in the exact same way that regular folks speak, Piker said. I see no reason to censor myself or talk in a regular way. I mean, I was saying, like, I talk in a regular way. This is how normal people speak when they have an opinion, okay? Rabb, who often used profanity on the campaign trail and did so repeatedly with Piker Thursday night, agreed and said Piker's popular streams were an act of defiance against corporate media and a federal government under President Donald Trump that he considers authoritarian. An important part of that independent streak, Rabb said, is his own use of the word genocide to explicitly describe Israel's attacks in Gaza. That position has become a defining issue in the race, separating him from Street and Stanford, who Rabb and his supporters have accused of benefiting from support from the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. AIPAC, a pro-Israel group that many Democrats have turned against, has not donated directly to Stanford, though groups supporting her received donations from political action committees aligned with AIPAC in a previous election cycle. I do want to point to one thing here, by the way. Okay? This is how mainstream media operates. Like the Philadelphia Inquirer is not like an op or anything. You know, they're like a regular local newspaper. I believe they might have even had their editorial board endorse Rab, if I'm not mistaken. But what's really interesting about it is like there is always a hidden bias in the way that we perceive the news and the way that we cover the news, right? And journalists obviously also have these sorts of hidden biases. And what I always find interesting is that there's always a dual standard, a double standard. Like they won't go to CARE or they won't go to other like Muslim groups or the Muslim community in Philadelphia, which is fairly vast, fairly large, to ask them how they feel, right? Like that's and this is not a newspaper that is antagonistic. As I'm telling you right now, this is not a newspaper that is antagonistic to Chris Rabb, right? So they're not even recognizing that they're participating in the same bias, right? They'll go to a pro-Israel institution to get a quote, but they'll never go to a pro-Palestinian institution to get a separate quote on Islamophobia, for example, right? This is the double standard. This is a part of the implicit biases that every institution holds, and even journalists who want to do their very best lean into without realizing. Like this newspaper is not trying to do a hit piece here, right? They're trying to do sincere coverage, and I think the ADL and like the Jewish Council of Jewish Relations and institutions like that take advantage of that. This is an example of them taking advantage of that. They legitimize the statements. They legitimize and offer weight to the accusations. And it's like this Ouroboros. These are different organizations that work alongside one another, that have different names, but have the same exact opinion, the same exact goal, which is to defend Israel, while utilizing the name of Judaism, while saying they're representing all Jews. They're simply representing Israel. That's their primary purpose here. And they basically offer insincere concerns more legitimacy, more weight. Like, oh, this is really scary. This guy's a really scary, dangerous guy. I don't think this is productive for discourse, right? I don't think this is productive for discourse at all. But it's just the way the cookie crumbles, I guess. It's just the way things are. Like, no one ever comes to me to be like, how do you feel about these attacks? Like, people say you're a terrorist. People say you're an Islamist fundamentalist. People say you're an anti-Semite. You spent your entire career combating anti-Semitism. How does that make you feel? Do you feel like this is Islamophobic, these attacks? Because at the end of the day, if everyone has that same bias, if the overwhelming majority of people have that same bias where they think, yeah, there is probably a little bit of legitimacy to these claims because he is Muslim after all. He probably is a little anti-Semitic. That's just how it works. And the cycle continues. Anyway, Rabb repeated throughout Piker's stream and specifically made a key part of his pitch when asking voters support for donations that he refused all corporate and AIPAC funds. The question voters should be asking, he said, is which candidate publicly disavows AIPAC and is willing to say there's an ongoing genocide and we're complicit with our tax dollars. Rabb has targeted young voters in particular with that message, using Piker's visit to energize and rally around the issue and his campaign. At a canvassing kickoff event at West Philly's Malcolm X Memorial Park just before meeting with Piker, he spoke to more than 100 mostly young people. Okay, there were 400 people there. Jesus Christ. Getting ready to knock on doors, and said the Democratic Party had previously failed to motivate them to show up and vote. I'm not clowning young people. I'm clowning a Democratic machine whose only job is to turn out Democrats, Rabb said. That's the one thing they're supposed to do really well, and they're trash at it. At a fundraiser at Renata's Kitchen a couple hours later, as many as 200 young, enthusiastic fans waiting to see Piker. Oh, this is, that was the other one. That was the other rally I wasn't at. Alternated between Eagles' chance and chance to tax the rich, free Palestine, beers in hand. Some wore maroon Philadelphia Democratic Socialist America hats. On the day, Rabb received the National Democratic Socialist Organization's endorsement. When Piker arrived, a woman in jeans and a brown leather jacket climbed the tree with one hand and held a cigarette on the other to get a closer look. After this Twitch stream, Chris is going to have even more enemies, Piker told the crowd before denouncing AIPAC in colorful language. Go Birds. But the disciplining operation, if you guys were wondering like why all of this coverage is taking place, even if it doesn't actually put a dent in my audience or put a dent in the way that people perceive me, even amongst like those who want to work alongside me, have me appear at their rallies, I'll tell you why. It's because for the rest of time, every single media coverage that features me in any way, shape, or form is always going to say controversial streamer, possible anti-Semite, and they will always go to a pro-Israeli organization to get their opinions about how Jewish people are terrified of him or something like that. It's totally insincere, but that was the operation, right? That is the reason why for the last 3 months they have been going unbelievably hard, and there will always be this like association. And the thing is, this is a great opportunity for candidates and for anyone really to look at this stuff and say, this is all bullshit, okay? You guys say this about anyone that's like anti-Israel, anyone that's critical of Israel doing a genocide, and you don't have this level of criticism that you launch at people who have contributed to Israel's genocide, right? Would you truly say it's insincere to call you controversial? No. But I think it is insincere to call me an anti-Semite. And they don't just say I'm controversial because my views are polarizing, or even on the issue of Israel, they're not polarizing at all, but they'll still say it's controversial because it's controversial to them. It's the language that they utilize here is purposeful. You have to understand. Like when the New York Times says the issue of Israel is dividing Democrats, the reality of the matter is it's not dividing the Democrats at all. It's not. It's dividing the Democratic voters and the Democratic Party, okay? But all of this is a tool to frame the conversation around an untouchable pariah. The real untouchable pariah is the Israeli state, not its critics, okay? So they work extra hard, tirelessly to make Israel's critics seem untouchable and a pariah, even when, as we've seen over and over again, in the real world, people don't have this attitude at all, right? It's a framing operation to basically deny reality that is observable. It's exactly in the same line as what people have done to Jeremy Corbyn in the past, calling him an anti-Semite over and over again, and then building up on the pre-existing news media coverage about calling me an anti-Semite, right? So yeah, unfortunately, we don't live in a normal and healthy functioning society where a lot of the viewpoints that I hold would not be covered by mainstream media as controversial. They're like, being pro Medicare for all, ending endless militarism overseas, shuttering some of our 800 military bases, focusing on ourselves, fixing the potholes, building our infrastructure, building our schools, making college free, making healthcare free. These are not controversial opinions at all. The overwhelming majority of Americans would agree with these opinions. And they do. They certainly agree with these opinions. That's precisely the reason why when people actually attack someone like myself, they don't actually address the issue. They say I'm anti-black, anti-gay, anti-trans, anti-Semitic, all of these things that I'm not, all of these things that I actually abhor and fight against, right? Because if they were to turn around and say, we don't like this guy because he says fuck Israel, and that's a bridge too far. We don't like this guy because he actually explains why Palestinians not only have a right to resist and why they resist, even in terms of militant resistance that ends up committing atrocities, right? We don't want to hear that conversation. We oppose him because he's explaining that stuff, and that's very dangerous because we don't want other people to understand that. We don't want other people to operate in that framework. It's a much easier argument to make that Israel has to be this violent entity in the region if we can constantly reinforce the notion that it's in a bad neighborhood surrounded by barbaric rapist Muslims who want to fucking kill every Jewish person on the planet, right? All of a sudden, when someone comes around and says, what would you do in that similar circumstance if you were Palestinian and your entire family was destroyed by Israel? Would you not take up arms? People go, wait a minute, I do understand that. That does actually make sense. And that's what's terrifying for a lot of the mainstream media gatekeepers, unfortunately. And it's certainly terrifying for a lot of these institutions. These guys will never cover Bill Maher as controversial media figure Bill Maher. They don't even say Jordan Peterson is controversial. They say Jordan Peterson's a professor. Controversial only goes in one direction. Or if it goes in the other direction, you have to be a straight up avowed self-titled neo-Nazi, right? That's what's so crazy about this. Like the permission structure is so unbelievably centered on the right, like the far right, that in order to be considered a controversial figure on the right, you have to literally be a neo-Nazi. But to be considered a controversial figure on the left, you have to oppose Israel. Yeah, it's the rotten herring tactic. Sure. A Guide to Russian Propaganda, Part 6, Spets Propaganda, the Secret Soviet Art of Brainwashing. This is from Euromaidan Press. Ironically enough, it is both of these, both that article is written by a State Department associate, and also it's the State Department style propaganda that's being implemented against me. So they're not doing it Russian style, they're doing it American style. Let's be real. I mean, I'm sure Russia does it too, of course, but so, but this is what it is. Look,
a Hasan Piker show, and that's gotten some criticism from.
Like, she goes, that's gotten some criticism. Who's it gotten criticism from? Has that gotten criticism, or are you just operating off of previous articles that other media outlets wrote? This is like when reporters or mainstream media outlets will like publish. They'll publish a poll result that'll be like, oh, only like 12% of Americans recognize Israel's committing a genocide. It's like almost like, yeah, it's your fault that is the case, when the objective reality is that Israel has committed a genocide. All of these other institutions that are tasked with identifying a genocide, looking at the intent, looking at the action, looking at the impact, have declared Israel to be doing a genocide. And the reason why only 12, by the way, that number is obviously not 12%. I just use that as a hypothetical. But the reason why that number is so minuscule in the American public is because you haven't done your job. You know, you haven't done you haven't served your stated purpose of disseminating the truth. Yeah, mainstream media will create a story and then will report on that same story, even if that isn't true, even if that's not sincere to begin with. Classic. Many people are saying this is a controversial person. Who's saying that? As a matter of fact, people have been polled, ironically enough, on appearing on my stream, and for the most part, they don't have any issue with it.
Some of his comments about October 7th, 9/11, and Hamas that have been, some of his comments have been heavily criticized. He did apologize for the 9/11 comment. What do you think of the language that he has used in the past, and are you okay with it?
I'm not aware of the language he's used. I'm recently aware of who he is through my sons, actually. So if
Is it something you're going to research before you do the show?
Not necessarily. There's no feedback when folks go on Bill Maher, and he said some very problematic things. There was no real pushback when Bernie Sanders went on Joe Rogan, who has consistently said problematic things. But here's the issue. Where's the line? I mean, we all have our own lines, right? But if I said I'm not going to communicate or engage someone who I don't share my politics with, I couldn't do my job as a state lawmaker. I worked the first 6 years in office with a Republican majority.
Hasan Piker hasn't said a thing wrong, period. We like Hasan infinitely more than we like the media or the DNC. Is a smart move. The more they keep pushing Hasan, the more people will be curious, the more they will start to realize the popularity movement is here. Keep it up, mainstream media. We love Hasan Piker, and his takes are always right. I didn't know who this Hasan guy was until the media started talking about him incessantly and suddenly, but now that I know who he is, I can say I really like him. I'm over 50, big fan of Hasan.
Their priorities were anathema to me.
Criticized
Many of the
by
things
you?
they fought for were things that deeply offended me. I still had to work with those folks because I had to find common cause. I'm going to find common cause with Hasan Piker. I'm going to find common cause with corporate Dems. I'm going to find common cause with anyone I can if they're willing to work in good faith to help people. That's my job as a public servant. So unless there is a line that is way too, out there, we all have to find that line. But I don't know until I have a conversation with him. But if there are things that we agree on, that's what we're going to focus on. That's how I've been such an effective lawmaker. I focus on the things that we have in common.
Yep. I don't think you can even say Israel isn't anti-Semitic. They bomb synagogues. Have you bombed a synagogue? Of course not. I am unconditionally and uncompromisingly anti-attacking places of worship. Okay. Israel, on the other hand, has not only bombed mosques, has not only bombed mosques, they've bombed churches,
anti-Semitism,
and they've also even bombed a synagogue. Well, synagogues historically, but a synagogue in Tehran as well. All right, hold on, I gotta pee.
No universal child care, no federal paid parental leave, no federal paid sick leave, no free higher education, nothing, okay? But we will ban Hasan Piker? No anti-racism laws where racism and discrimination in general is punishable by law. But we're gonna clip Hasan Piker, and based off of that, we're gonna pass anti-Hasan Piker bills? No drug decriminalization, no housing as a human right, no automatic voter registration, no sentencing reform. But Hasan Piker, right? Data privacy, GDPR, what? No, Hasan Piker. Yeah, okay, cool. We get it. No universal health care, no universal child care, no federal paid parental leave, no federal paid sick leave, no free higher education, nothing, okay? But we will ban Hasan Piker? No anti-racism laws where racism and discrimination in general is punishable by law. But we're gonna clip Hasan Piker, and based off of that, we're gonna pass anti-Hasan.
W loop. There's also this.
very real to me, with the key exception of when it's brought up in American politics by American politicians. Because what do you mean there's a bipartisan motion being presented in the House to condemn Hasan Piker for anti-Semitism, and I saw Elon Musk do a Nazi salute on stage and go on to gut every single social service? What the fuck are we talking about? Perhaps there's an instance and I just don't remember it, but when was the last time that Congress got together bipartisan to issue a condemnation of somebody for racism? For like anti-blackness? Where was this energy when Republicans were depicting Obama being lynched? I don't expect to see eye to.
That's true. The Elon Musk full Hitler salute is such a crazy moment in American history that should not be forgotten, even though it has been forgotten. That basically betrays all of this nonsense, right? Elon Musk did that shit twice. He hit the double sig heil. And he put some emphasis on it too. He put his full chest into that shit. And yes, it was very controversial at the time. A lot of people got mad at it. There was no condemnation from Congress, though.
I will Zionist anytime soon, but is this degree of pandering not like nauseating and embarrassing? At least like annoying to witness people grovel like this as they virtue signal, hey, we understand that we have a collected interest in Israel, and we understand that you are a key part of our votes and donations, and I will literally kiss ass to make sure you know that. There are active white supremacists in the White House. Is the pandering, is the virtue signaling not at least like a little gross? A little?
It's just crazy because, like, Gavin Newsom, who wants to run for president, gets more smoke for saying he would entertain coming on my show than going on Steve Bannon's show, going on Ben Shapiro's show, and conversing with Charlie Kirk before Charlie Kirk was assassinated and agreeing with them. Okay? This shows exactly what is acceptable speech in mainstream media and what's outside of the confines of permissible speech in mainstream outlets. Okay? Now, I understand why Fox News would make this distinction, but what blows my mind is when all these supposedly liberal media outlets don't cover that in the same way. From their perspective, Ben Shapiro is not controversial. Ben Shapiro is a regular right-wing commentator, okay? Ben Shapiro's entire worldview is heinous. Ben Shapiro has said unbelievably racist things, both politely and also in a vulgar manner as well. What are we doing? What is this comparison? It makes no sense. Anyway, I'm done with this shit. Let's move on. There was a good Ebro moment as well. Jewish podcast host Peter Rosenberg calls out HasanAbi over his comments about Hamas, right? Which is ironic because like the 3-minute conversation, if you watch the video, shows a very different reality. Candace Owens briefly talked about you.
Literally April 29th. I couldn't believe this. The U.S. House is considering a resolution condemning Hasan Piker. I've never spoken to that person in my entire life. And Candace Owens for, you got it, guys, anti-Semitism. Who's bringing this forward? Okay, we've got Reps Mike Lauer and Josh Gottheimer. And it's a bipartisan bill to denounce anti-Semitic hate-filled rhetoric. Though far-left Piker says that the move is making anti-Semitism worse. That is our subheading here. The resolution begins by...
Yeah, Candace Owens blocked me many years ago because I've been outspoken about her defense of white supremacy and, ironically enough, her anti-Semitic tendencies as well for many, many years.
Condemning anti-Semitic hate-filled rhetoric and content that is disseminated to prominent online personalities... Blah, blah, blah. It tells us that whereas the rise of digital media platforms has enabled individuals with large audiences to disseminate disinformation,
I've never spoken to Candace
and political
Owens.
viewpoints to millions of viewers worldwide, such influence carries a heightened responsibility to avoid rhetoric that promotes hatred, violence, or discrimination against any group, including Jewish individuals and communities. All on the same day, everyone is just suddenly signaling that speech is violence. Speech is now violence. They name check me and says, whereas Candace Owens has employed rhetoric that has included conspiracy theories, accusing Israel of controlling the United States government. By the way, ironically, these two people, both of them who brought this forward, take more than $1 million from AIPAC. Government promoting false claims that Jews are taught by ancient religious texts to hate.
I haven't watched this, but I did see her show a clip of Mengele, and that was enough for me. Yeah, I don't really care about this. I've never spoken to her. I've spoken about her quite a bit. And I also gave her a $5 donation that she did not read.